Welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Pete Show here on Let's Talk Radio, WLTK-DB.com. You can get the show right on the website, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, all over the place. Thanks for watching and thanks for tuning in. This is episode 42. And tonight I've got special guest Paul Graves on, fellow Washingtonian. And we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. And I've got a great month of November lined up. I'm super excited. So we're kicking the month off with Paul Graves tonight. Next week, I've got cryptozoologist Ken Gearhart on the show, and I'm going to probably have a ton of questions for him. And so looking forward to having Ken on the show. And the week after that is the 1-year anniversary of the start of the Paranormal Pete Show. So very excited for that. That's on the 16th. And I am welcoming in my really good friends, the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen. And most all of them have been on the show already. Investigators Casey Goodwin, Ben Robinson, Michael White, and Neil McNeil. And that's going to be a fun show. We're going to do kind of just a round table. We'll take questions from the audience and talk about different topics. So that's coming up for the 1-year anniversary show. I can't believe I made it. Woohoo! And the week after that, I've got researcher Mark Mersell, and he is kind of the leading guy on the Ape Canyon story, which is fascinating, down in the Mount St. Helens area. And he's also got some really cool other stories and things that he's been researching for a long time. Have to do with the Puget Sound, and there's even a tie-in with historic Port Gamble where I am. So I'm super excited to have him on the 23rd. And rounding out November, very excited to welcome Jim Clarkson to the show. He is a UFO researcher. He's a former police officer, and I just really looking forward to talking with him. So we've got a great lineup of guests this month. And thanks to my producer, Mike Beers, who's joined the show. And so thanks, Mike, for all the hard work you're doing behind the scenes in the show. And also give a special shout out to Todd Bates, host of Haunted Voices. And he is the station of WLTK-DB.com. Thanks, Todd, for everything you do. Be sure you go check out the website and check out all the shows. There's a new show back on Wednesdays over the Target. So make sure you want to catch that. There's Afterlife Chronicles, Be the Change, and Schooled in Spirit, New Bridge Radio. There's so many shows. So there's a lot of content for you to take in and learn. So thanks for following this show, especially, and really appreciate that. This weekend, I just want to bring up, we've got the Port Gamble Ghost Conference, and it's the 12th annual right here in historic Port Gamble. We have in-person option as well as a virtual option. So if you can't make it out to Port Gamble, say you're out of state or even in the state, whatever, if you can't make it, but you still want to join in, you can get a virtual ticket. You just go to portgamble.com and you can see the Ghost Conference button there, and it takes you to the page, and links for both in-person and virtual tickets are right there. So the virtual ticket's $20, and it gets you front row seats to all of the speaking presentations and panel discussions. So that's coming up this weekend, and I'm just super excited. It's going to be nice to see some people. And of course, we'll be following the Washington State mandates for events. So with safety in mind, but very excited to see people, and we'll be excited to see the virtual audience as well. So check it out at portgamble.com. And I just a quick review of October now that we've gone through Halloween. Whew, thank goodness. Love Halloween. Love when it's over too. But I had a great month of Ghost Walk tours, and really some great people on the tours, and we had a lot of fun. Our Halloween night ghost walk, right at the tail end, of course, right when everyone's leaving out of the Walker Ames house. Then, of course, somebody hears a few footsteps on an upper floor where nobody was. So typical paranormal timing there. Everyone's leaving, then something happens. But that was really fun. So I had a great month of ghost walks, and I have some more coming up. November sold out, but December I have some space, and then January through April there's one tour a month, and you can go right here, portgambleparanormal.com to check out the dates and get tickets there. But just want to say thanks for everybody for coming out on the ghost walks. It was a lot of fun, and that always keeps it fun for me after doing it for this is my 11th season of doing the tours. And so I just want to thank everybody for the support in that and supporting the Ghost Conference and the station. So don't forget, you can go get some station merch too. Hit the shop on the station website, WLTK-DB.com, and you can get show shirts like Haunted Voices, Afterlife Chronicles, and this show, Paranormal Pete Show. So if you love these shows, show some support, get a shirt, support it around. And thanks for just following the show. Really appreciate it. Anybody out there, if you want to say hello, go ahead and comment wherever you're watching from. We'll see that, especially if you have a question, put it on there or on the station chat on the website, and we'll be sure to try and answer it. So again, we've got a great month of shows coming up here. It's pretty exciting. So tonight, I'm going to welcome to the Paranormal Pete Show a guy that I feel like can become fast friends with. Such a cool guy. He's a fellow Washington State resident and growing up on the eastern slopes of the north central Washington Cascade Mountain Range. It's such a cool area. If you've never been there, the Cascades area, the whole part of the state is just cool. Whether you're on the east side or the west side of them, it's just an interesting place. And so Paul grew up there, and he has a concrete business, and he's a longtime musician and singer songwriter. So of course that's awesome. Fellow musicians, I always love talking to musicians. He started to investigate Sasquatch, or Bigfoot if you will, the subject in 1988, and has collected a large local database of people that have had encounters. He's an avid outdoorsman and pretty much spends 12 months of the year out and about in the elements, snowshoeing or just hiking. So he's always kind of out and about in the woods there. And the area he's from is there's a lot of history with the first local settlers and also the local Native American tribe as well. So sounds like a really cool area. His band, Flat Nasty, has also recorded an album of Bigfoot songs. Nobody's done that before, and his songs are known around the world, and we're going to be playing one of those for you tonight. So looking forward to that. And he's given many presentations at museums and conferences, as well as contributed to shows on the History Channel, National Geographic, Animal Planet, Northwest Afternoon, Jack Osborne, and a number of other documentaries and films. So please welcome to the Paranormal Pete Show, special guest Paul Graves. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Hey, thank you, Pete. No, this is wonderful. Thank you for having me on. Really looking forward to talking with you tonight.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to it as well. And thanks for taking the time. And you're a busy guy. You're always outdoors or you're out running your business. So thanks for taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always it's an honor to be able to talk about this stuff because you got to get it off your chest sometimes. So
Yeah, it just builds up and builds up. And
I
especially,
did want to say one thing on your introduction. Thank you for that great introduction. I just wanted to make one correction. So my band, Flat Nasty, that's my newest band that I'm playing in. It's a three-piece funk band. But actually they the band didn't write the Bigfoot songs. I have personally. These are solo Bigfoot songs that I've written over the years. The first one was with my band Moss Dog in the early 90s, and
oh, nice.
that was a song called Mount Monkey, and that was off our second album, Midnight Forest Run. So yeah, the Bigfoot songs that I've written are just me. I'm just Paul Graves, basically.
Sweet.
It's a compilation album that I put together with like I think I have like 11 songs about Bigfoot that I've written over the years.
You must love the guy.
Well, it's great subject matter for writing. Instantly it was just like this is perfect. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, the mystery surrounding Bigfoot can provide a lot of great just thinking, and
Hmm.
opening your mind, and that's, always great for writing songs is things that
That's
open your mind.
oh yeah.
Yeah. So, since you're a musician and I've had some other musicians on the show, I've often asked kind of what their take is on music and things beyond our perception. So I guess you could say that's the paranormal. And what I mean is, um, it's often you find people in a field of research for Bigfoot or UFOs or ghosts and spirits. They're often either really into music, or they play music, or they do art. And oh, there's Mike Beers. Says, "Hey guys, good to see you on there, Paul. Thanks
Hi,
for
Mike.
listening, Mike." Yeah, thanks for listening, Mike. Um, I've kind of got this thought that, obviously music is vibration, sound waves.
Hmm.
And does music kind of open the musician's mind to maybe more things in life, like the paranormal or experiences with, you know, mystical creatures, Bigfoot, or do you think it? Oh, there's Brandon Brown, it opens the third eye, and I totally think that. I mean, what do you think, Paul?
Oh, I totally agree. I think that's all part of the creative process. You're musicians and artists, you're constantly, and people that aren't an artist or musician don't know this, but they don't realize how much time that we actually put into to music and or art. I mean, it's a daily thing, but it's a weekly thing, it's a monthly thing, it's a yearly thing. It's a constant thing. Once you are an artist, you can't just say, well, I'm not going to be an artist today, or whatever, because it's always there. In
Yeah,
fact, it's hard sometimes just not even to like walk by, even if my hands hurting from arthritis or whatever, to pick up the guitar, because you just want to pick the guitar up, and it's hard not to play. But I think the creative process of creating art, you're going places that a lot of people don't go with your mind. You're getting pretty deep into, and so I think that right there helps open up when we're researching these other things. It just seems like, and you're right, I've met a lot of other people too, that are either artists or musicians, and they seem like my research partner, for instance. He's a guitar player too, and he actually works for me, and he's a sculptor, and and when we go out together, I mean, it's things happen. And then
yeah,
there's other people I'll go out with and nothing will happen. So yeah, there's definitely something to that for
yeah.
sure.
So, do you think when you go out in the field and so do you think you have more experiences when you're with your friend, or versus
Yes.
somebody who's not a musician or artist, you may not have the same level of activity or whatever you're looking for?
Yes. Totally believe that. It's been proven over and over to me over the years. So
Wow.
um yeah, no, there's when me and Josh go out, it's like of course I've learned over the years, I look at this whole Bigfoot thing, first of all. I started doing it in 1988, and I started just collecting reports locally. My mom was a reporter at the Wenatchee World for 26 years, so I kind of learned a little bit about interviewing people or whatever. And
Oh yeah.
I literally in the early days, my first 10 years of research, that's what I was doing. Is I would ask anybody, like in the grocery line, and it was real matter of fact when I asked them. And when you ask people just matter of fact, not being joking or whatever, especially over here, there's a lot of hunting and fishing, people that a lot of recreation over here. I was really amazed how many reports I was getting. It was not everybody, obviously, but
Hmm.
it was, I would talk to somebody, he'd be like, well, my friends or my uncle's this, or, there was the connection here locally was just astounding, and so I just started putting a database together and started collecting the local reports. My first report, that I got was in 88. I was at my sister's house and we were watching a TV program, and it was about Bigfoot. And my sister had a couple over, her friends. And after the show, the guy just looked up and he goes, well, I've seen one of these things. And I was like, no way. This was my first, and it was local. And I got really excited because I'd heard about him growing up, but, I'd always been doing other things, wanting to be a musician, being, just growing up, being a kid, whatever.
Yeah.
But in 1988, after that show, when that guy said that, all of a sudden something just clicked, and from that day on, I went forth and I started buying every book that I could on the subject, and I didn't think anybody was other people were into searching for them until I found a small group in Washington, and I realized, oh, there's
Okay.
other people that are actually, look at it, because I thought, hey, I'm onto something here. I'm going to be the one, it's like,
Yeah.
no, and and even to this day, for as long as I've been doing it, I truly believe in my lifetime and probably my kids' lifetime, we still won't find out about Bigfoot, because to me, he's definitely a terrestrial thing. He's on this planet. He's out there, but there's something more to it too, and I just can't put my finger on it. But there just has to be, when you look at it logically. When you really look at
Sure.
the whole picture and the whole history and how far back he goes, but yet where we are today, there's just got to be something else there. Um,
Yeah.
and I keep an
It's
open mind. That I've always told people,
yeah.
the people that get scared about paranormal things or woo things, it's like they just you can't be like that. You should just, it's more fun to have an open mind, isn't it? Because
Yes.
it's just fabulous. There's got to be these fabulous things out there. You look up at the sky. I was looking up the other night through my night vision. I was waiting for the northern lights, and they never showed up.
I know, darn it.
I know, right? But if you've ever looked up in the night sky with a night vision scope, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I mean,
Really? I've never tried
oh,
that.
oh, oh, you see so much more, so many more stars, especially if you've got a decent scope, a Gen 2 or 3. I mean, the stuff that's going on up there the other night, it looked like a circus up there. I mean, it was like there was stuff going every which way but loose,
Oh
and you
man.
can't see that through the human eye. And most people never look at that, but if you ever get a chance, it's really cool.
Wow, I had never thought of that. I will be
Oh,
looking
you
into that.
yeah, you find someone that's got a scope and find a good lawn chair and just wait for a nice clear light and just go back and lay back with that scope for about an hour or two, and you'll be blown away.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, that is cool. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into that. I mean, we get some pretty nice clear skies over here in Port Gamble, and there's not a lot of light pollution or anything. And I know the area you're at, there's pretty much no light pollution, right?
Not a lot, no.
Yeah. So, oh, that
Like
is
my
so cool.
county, the county I'm from, I live in Chelan County, and so it's like 83% national forest.
Yeah.
So that just gives you an idea of. And then the Wenatchee National Forest is over 2 million acres, and then the Okanagan is another million. But then you've got all the wilderness, the
Wow.
Henry M, wilderness areas, Alpine Lakes wilderness, all touching,
Right.
right here on our woods. So we've got just some vast areas right on my, back doorstep here that you can get into and not see anybody. It's a little different than the western side. The western side, your trails a little bit more busy, but over here there's still a lot of places you can go, and it's there's some, pretty remote places you can get into.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like the perfect place for you since you love to be outdoors. What's been and have you ever had like a bear encounter or a cougar, like a
Oh
big
yeah.
yeah, tell us about one of those because I know that I'm always like kind of looking over my shoulder if I'm walking around the woods, seeing
I've
if a
had a bear
cougar's
come
following
right
me.
right in and walk right next to my tent before. I've had elk. I've woke up and have an elk like almost hovering over my tent before. Um,
Those are a lot bigger than you think. Once you see
elk.
them in person, you're like,
Oh yeah,
"Oh man, that is
yeah. Well, we
huge."
get we get moose too. We've got moose.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
wow.
got moose on my property, so they come clear across the Washington state, clear over from Spokane, and they'll walk clear across that whole part of the state there.
Yeah. And do you take anything to protect yourself when you're going out there?
Um, bear spray, a healthy can of bear spray is usually what I carry,
Nice. Yeah, I'm
and
it's great.
yeah, and I've always carried a knife. I mean, at least one knife. I mean,
Yeah.
at least one. But no, if it depends on where I'm at. Now, if I'm going to go over towards Montana or Idaho where there's grizzlies, yeah, then you definitely want to carry a firearm
sidearm, yeah.
well, and maybe some bear spray. It's not
Yeah.
a bad idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally bear spray, and we've got a lot of bear over here, but I mountain bike too, and we don't carry bear spray when we mountain bike. So, I mean, if you've been in the woods a lot, like I have, you kind of know how to be in the woods and making noise and stuff like that. And usually the bears, they're going to be more scared of you than unless you catch a mama with her cubs and you're down a real thick trail and one of her cubs is off to the left and she's on the right eating, and then all of a sudden you come in there and she's going to get pissed off,
Yeah.
And she'll either bluff charge you or she'll flat out charge you. But bears are really on the least of my problem, or what I'm thinking about. Cats, they're definitely more sneaky. You got to be really watch out for them, but you generally scare them away too if you look big, if you're a bigger person or whatever.
Yeah,
the moose can get really unpredictable though, but we don't have a lot of moose. It's not like being back up in Maine where you got to be careful up there because they'll just trample you up there.
Oh yeah, and those are huge.
Yes.
Hey, so we're gonna take a quick break here and pay the station bills here.
Cool.
And we'll be right back here with special guest Paul Graves on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orban, on WLTK-DB.com. See you in a second.
Meet Nicole Strickland. One of the leading San Diego paranormal researchers, Nicole offers a gentle and humble approach to working with spirit energies. Being the founder of the San Diego Paranormal Research Society, Nicole is no stranger to the unknown. Due to Nicole's vast knowledge of the paranormal, she is widely sought after for speaking engagements on topics like children of the paranormal, paranormal investigation 101 and 102, history of spiritualism, and more. Not only does Nicole research the afterlife, but also writes about it, and is the author of several books pertaining to the paranormal and its history. Nicole has appeared on television shows like My Ghost Story, Travel Channel's Famously Afraid, Good Morning San Diego, and more. Have a conference or event coming up? Contact Nicole on her website, authornicolestrickland.com. That's authornicolestrickland.com.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orban. We're on episode 42 here with Paul Graves. Hey, Paul.
Hey. Hi.
Welcome back. And thanks, everybody out there, for listening. If anybody has any questions, put them in the chat or comment wherever you're watching from, and we'll try and answer it. I always love when people join the conversation. So before the break, I had to ask Paul, if he'd had any big wildlife encounters and all the times he's out in the woods. He pretty much grew up out in the woods. Would you say that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you this. So you started creating this database of accounts of Bigfoot starting back in 1988.
That's correct. Yep.
It seems so long ago, but not at the same time. I don't know. When all the accounts you've gotten, and maybe even in your own personal experiences, have you ever found that Sasquatch imitates other wildlife?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious about that. What, just from your experience in collecting all these accounts and maybe a personal experience out in the field, what animal would you say that Sasquatch most imitates?
Probably birds.
Okay.
They're well known for a whistle that they do. They do this whistle thing that has almost like a scream in the whistle. It's almost like a two-toned. It's hard to explain, but when they do it, it's a whistle with a kind of a scream in it when they go off. But yeah, definitely, I think birds. And there's kind of a history with that. The Native Americans talk about that, the whistles, and I've definitely heard them. they'll sometimes come right up to the edge of camp at when it's dark, and they'll let one of those off, and because it almost sounds like a young kid whistling with his fingers, but it's got that
something else behind it.
Something else in there, yeah, that's very unique to that, and so yeah.
So when you've heard that just on the edge of camp when you're in your tent, what do you reach for first, your audio recorder or the bear spray?
Definitely the audio, and hopefully the
Okay.
audio's going at that point. But a lot of times, in the Sasquatch world, when you're researching, there's a lot of things that go kapooey. One of the biggest things when Sasquatch seem to be around is battery issues also.
Really?
Have a lot of batteries go out when there's Bigfoots close by and they're screaming or making noise, and I don't know what that is. That happened 2 times in the Hump Tulips when I was at I was with Josh, my friend, and we were actually at some property one of my songs I wrote is called Jim Henry. It's about a real witness. Jim's about, I think he's 84, 85 today, still alive, but he had a lifetime of encounters in Grace Harbor County over in the Hump Tulips area. He owned some property on the Hump Tulips River.
Okay.
And he was clearing it and stuff, and this Bigfoot would come up and watch him, and other things. I mean, if you listen to my song called Jim Henry, it kind of tells the story. And but we were over there, and we got invited to this property, and the new owner who had bought the property actually witnessed a Sasquatch jumping from his property into and swam across the Hump Tulips. He witnessed the whole thing.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And so it's like a big bend where this particular part of this Hump Tulips is. It's off Kirkpatrick Road over there, near Copalis Crossing.
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with the area. Okay.
Yeah. So, but we were over there, and so I'd set up my recorder, and the river it was in flood stage. This was like February. It had been raining all day. We drove over from Wenatchee and drove straight there. Got there late. Tried to get a fire going. It was raining. It was puttering out, And I put my recorder up on this post because there was a gate where it locked, and that's where you could put a drift boat in right there. And so I just put it on the thing, and I got really good recordings of something clacking rocks together.
Oh wow.
Yes, like very rhythmically. I mean, I've got some really good recordings of that night, but I went over there and my batteries went out, and so it was like, well, I just put new batteries in that night just before I'd gone over to the post, and so I got a little bit of the rock clacking, put new batteries in, and this time it started to rain, so I put the recorder in my tent. Well, we decided to sit in the Jeep because it was raining, and we couldn't keep the fire going, so we were just going to go sit over there. So we went over there and sat over there for a while, and we kind of were listening to the music a little bit and sitting there. We kept looking over and hearing something. We'd had our tents set up by this time across this little, real muddy little field area, and our tents were close right next to the river. Pretty close. There was just some trees, and on my recorder, you can hear. When we finally decide to go to bed, it's like midnight or 1. We're walking over there, and you can hear us talking. And right when I get to my recorder, it goes out.
Huh.
So batteries go out again. And we laid down, and that's when one of the scariest things that ever happened to me and Josh.
Oh man.
It had to have been either a Sasquatch or it was something from prehistoric times, because we heard, it was like, Josh, you hear that? And you could hear like this sucking sound. It sounded like literally like footsteps in the mud, and it got fairly close to us, and then all of a sudden we just heard this tremendous sounded like a tree getting ripped down, but it sounded like a car wreck, and it was just so loud and violent. And then something beat on its chest like something out of a Tarzan movie, and then it started screaming, and this scream turned into a terrific, just mind-boggling roar. It was just like,
whoa.
I mean, just crazy scream. And then you hear this. It was like, oh God, I'm in the river. I'm done. I'm like, oh yeah, I was like gripping myself. And it's like, Josh was like, what is going on out here? And we made it through to the next morning. You know, I mean, you wake up the next morning, it's a new day. But I'll tell you, there for a few minutes that night, and that was right there off right close to where Jim Henry's property was. And we even found an X marker because I also study these possible structures and things that they do. And I totally believe in that because I've had things like appear and disappear in private areas within days.
Okay,
You
like a
know,
structure, it's there
yes,
and then it's
yes,
not,
and
and
yes, multiple times. I've been actually researching this aspect of it since 2005. And
okay,
I wrote one of my papers, a short paper I wrote on it is at the Sasquatch Canada website that's available. I can't remember what number it is, but it's in there. And I totally believe this is something they do, but you know, it kind of makes sense for what they are also. You know, I worked with John Bindernagel a lot, and boy, I sure miss him. He was a great guy. I don't know if you know who John is. He was a
I don't really don't know
wildlife
who he is.
biologist from
Okay,
Canada, and he wrote
okay,
2 books. His first book, North America's Great Ape, the Sasquatch, and then the second book is called The Discovery of the Sasquatch. And he was trying to really get into deeper scientific circles and push some of this research that he's put together. But he
right,
totally believes that, you know, the Sasquatch to him are kind of like us. You know, we're in the great ape family, the humans are.
okay,
And, you know, a Sasquatch could possibly be in the great ape family, or it could be a relic hominid or whatever. But,
mhm,
you know, all relic hominids and all those types of things in the forest utilized branches and sticks and things. You know, it's not that big of it's not that far beyond to think that, you know, a Sasquatch could do something
right.
like that.
Uh,
Um,
look at how we build houses.
exactly. And that's in one of my talks that I give. I talk about us building and how we build real straight, you know, generally too. But, you know, in fact, one of my talks was called Sign and Symbol. And it talks about, like, for instance, the McDonald's golden arches. Well, instantly, you know, worldwide, everyone, you can look at that and you can instantly tell what it is. But I also did some research, in bonobos and chimpanzees will sometimes leave sticks in a certain formation, like at the beginning of a trail, if they went down a certain trail for the other bonobos to see.
Okay, yeah,
So I mean,
that
and
makes
that's a
sense.
bonobo, you know. So you think of something as smart as a Sasquatch. But again, you know, I'm not one of these people that go out in the forest and then look for things that are, you know, out of place or whatever. It's actually in research areas where there's been sightings and massive other stuff going on, and then within a day or within hours, things would change.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
it's really compelling. This latest area, where one of my areas that I go, that I've been going for about 20 years. I had a daylight sighting last year at this area, and
cool.
it was about a minute to a minute and a half after this thing pushed a tree over, like right across the road from where I was camped.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I mean, a violently, and I say tree pushed over because they sound like a tree pushover in a way, but then it also doesn't sometimes. It's like, to me, it's like an explosion because you don't hear like the it's
Yeah,
just like a it's just like one big explosion. It almost like sounds like taking a tree and just breaking it over your knee or something like that, you know.
right, right.
And yeah, and this thing, it did that, and we got up, and I was with Josh and his wife, so there was the 3 of us, and we waited for a second, and I got halfway across the road, and I had just bought a new camera, and I go, "Wait, oh, I forgot my camera." I go, "Yeah, I'll probably see something, and I don't have my camera." And I was just
Yeah.
joking to myself, and I went over there, and I stood over there, and I was looking back through the trees, and this thing seemed to have doubled back, and went back over across the road, and I caught it just as it was going into the slide alder off the road there. Um,
Wow.
and you know, this particular trip was, I just want to say, like, crazy. I mean, it was, as soon as we got there, the forest was silent. There was no birds, there was no insects, there was nothing
And that
except
grabs your attention, right? When you're not
yes,
hearing the birds?
except within 2 minutes of us being there that day, the wood knocks started, and they went on all day and all night from different directions and different timbres, you know, different sounds. Some of them were power knocks, some of them were pop knocks.
Okay.
There's these poppy knocks that almost sound like, take your finger in your mouth, but super loud.
Yeah.
Then there's other ones that are real deep and just real powerful thud type knocks.
Right.
But I got screams recorded this night also. I mean, I actually got recorded. Josh got one. It pushes these trees over, like 5 trees got pushed over in 1 year that we've been up there in this particular area. I mean, they're aggressive. It's funny because people talk about, Bigfoots. I've heard a few people talking about down south that the Bigfoots are way more aggressive down there. Well, I don't think so. I think Bigfoots in general can be aggressive, and just because one comes and knocks on the side of your house, well, that could be considered aggressive. But what I consider aggressive, so I'll tell you a story. This is a true story.
Okay.
And a friend of mine that I did a job for, he's actually the Forest Service manager up a particular valley up here for the last 30 years. And this guy was coming out, and he stopped him, and the guy was like really upset. He said his eyes were like bugged out of his head, and he was a prospector. And what happened is this guy he was up this lonely valley up off this other valley, and he was up there alone, and he decided to sleep on the ground, and he slept on the ground. Well, something came up in the middle of the night, and in his sleeping bag, picked him up in his sleeping bag and drug him around like a rag doll for 2 or 3 hours. Played with him, like rolled him and drug him around the camp. Yeah, played with him like a doll.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is a true story. And this I know exactly where this happened, and there's so many Sasquatch up there. It's just, it's just a known thing. I mean, but this
oh my, I can't, well, I can, and it's terrifying.
Well, when I first heard this story, he reminded me of the Albert Osterman story. There's a famous story, the prospector from Canada in 1924, I think, that he got picked up while he was sleeping in his sleeping bag, and he got carried to this little cirque. And when he woke up, there was actually a family of them. There was a mom and a dad, and there was a couple kids of these Sasquatch people, or whatever you want to call them.
Smokes.
But yeah, and so this happened not very far from here, and it's in fact, it happened up the same valley where I got my first report, where the guy said he'd seen one, because he was hunting. The first report, the guy had been hunting, and he got left off on a corner. And the guy said, well, pick me back up here in about an hour. I'm just going to head off here and, off this corner right here. And so he headed off, and it was about a half a mile in. He came across a small lake, or a tarn. Tarn is another name for a small lake.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this thing that was crouched down across the lake, and it was crouched in a crouched position. Anyone that's done any research on Bigfoot, they seem to crouch a lot.
Yeah.
It's a characteristic. Well, I think they can go down on all fours. I mean, we've seen them through night vision and thermals on all fours. But it was crouched down, and he put this thing in. He had his rifle scopes, and he looked at this thing through his rifle scopes for over a minute. And it was like grimacing, and it was making facial features. And he was like, oh my gosh. He was like, he said there was no way, first of all, that he could have pulled the trigger, because what he was looking at was a man. Okay. He was adamant that it was some kind of a person. And you got to realize, about over 90% of all my reports that I've gotten over the years, that's what they say it is. It's more of a man,
but big.
Yeah. But definitely a man. And all the Indian tribes, definitely say that it's some kind of a man or a hominid,
Right.
That's why I just think, people shouldn't just be shooting one just to shoot one, because for one thing, I don't think you'll be able to shoot it and bring it in. People like, it would have happened by now. And I know that there's reports of them being killed, and shot. I mean, there's over 100 reports of them being killed and shot, but the body never seems to show up in a scientific type of situation where it proves it any way, one way or another. That's why I think there's more to this whole thing, because there should have been something by now,
Right. You would think, with all of us out there, how many more people are out there each day
with phones and everyone's got a camera, you know.
Right. Right.
But what are they and where are they going? And, all that's interesting stuff. The one thing I know for sure is they're definitely out there. It's not even a matter of do these things exist or not. I mean, we know they exist.
Yeah.
And anybody that's worth their salt in the outdoors knows they exist, and especially in Washington State. I'll just tell you that. There's your weekend warriors that go out that just don't get it or whatever. It just goes over the top of their head. But maybe one day it will.
Yeah.
I know guys that didn't know they've been in their woods in their 60s, and then all of a sudden they have an encounter in their 60s, and then their life's changed. They've been plugging around. They're out there their whole life, and then they have an encounter, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, these
Yeah.
things do exist."
Yeah. I feel the same way about spirits. I'm a believer because of just the amount of experiences,
Yeah.
I've had in my life. Well, let me ask you this. You were talking about them being aggressive, maybe just in general, not so much in the South, but in general, aggressive. And it kind of makes me, think, if they are, a part of the great ape family. I mean, is it territorialism? Is that why you think they get aggressive? They're territorial, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that could have a lot to do with it. I mean, when we get into certain areas, there's Washington State, Oregon, California, we've done a lot of logging, and a lot of logging roads can get you, especially in Washington here. You can get in pretty deep into the Cascades on a logging road. You don't necessarily have to hike in, to get into a remote area. You can literally drive to, if you've got a decent, rig.
Yeah.
Which is cool, and we've got dispersed camping, which is, you can pretty much camp where you want, so, you can get into some of these areas that are just, I think you get into one of their zones and for whatever reason, they get pissed or can get pissy,
Yeah, I mean, it's like us people get that way,
Yeah, totally.
and so
Yeah.
it's totally plausible to think that, well, yeah, they'd be territorial as well, just like any other predator out there is usually very territorial.
Well, one of the things I talk about too in some of my talks is, so they've got us figured out. Humans we're real predictable. Okay, we're a predictable bunch.
I agree.
We only can hike so fast. We need clothes. We need to be back before dark. We need to be into some kind of shelter. And
Right.
these Bigfoots, they don't. So some of the camp areas that I go to that I call like these dispersed camping areas, they're all over, like on the east side of Mount Rainier and any area. And you can go in there, and when you drive into a dispersed camping area, usually the ground is really bare, right?
Right.
It's been walked on by humans a lot. So and there's a camp ring there, you've got a fire ring, and so people camp there, and year after year, people come back and they camp at these same places. Some of these places are deep in the woods, but they're still a human area. So I call those areas, those are like human playrooms. Okay. When us humans come to these designated camp spots, the Bigfoots know those are designated camp spots. They know that people are going to be coming to those areas, and that's where we get messed with a lot. Like there's a big lake on the east side of Mount Rainier that we go to. A lot of people know about it now. It's kind of gotten off the chart. It's well known for research, and they come in there, and when you're in your little human room, what I call human room, they love to mess with you. And they do. Let me tell you, they do all kinds of mischievous stuff. We think it could be the younger ones, but that's when we're camped in these particular rooms. Now it's different when you put a backpack on and you go up into the middle of the woods, and you don't stay in one of the camps that's designated up there in the mountains. You just stay in a completely different area that's off grid.
Yeah.
That's when things can be really weird. Because now all of a sudden you're in their room.
You're in their playroom.
You're in their playroom now. You're not in your playroom. See what I'm saying? So the way the Sasquatch acts is different than yes, and it's just as different than. So I encourage people, if you want to go have a Sasquatch encounter, go camp at one of these places, these dispersed camping areas. spend as much time as possible there. Try to use the same way in and out. Be predictable. Don't be like pushing around the whole camp in 360-degree.
Sure.
Just be predictable in your little thing. Do your thing. Play music. Have food. Laugh. Do be normal, but be researching on the undercut. And that's when they'll come and visit you. And usually it's not on the first night, but if you're going to be there for 2 or 3 nights, they'll find that they'll eventually come check you out. But doing the latter, backpacking into a remote area, I've had some pretty crazy things happen because I kind of I know kind of after doing this for a long time where they're hanging out, in the Cascades a little bit. They're near water sources and they'd like to be near real inaccessible granite areas too, where there's a lot of granite. And there's, they're there and they'll act different than when you're in your room. That's one thing I have found. So
when you say they act different, I mean, is that meaning more like
well, they can either
your safety's more at jeopardy, possibly?
Well, yes, that possibly. They'll either be super quiet, okay? Like if in a remote area, they'll either be super quiet and won't make a peep because for whatever reason, or they'll just be all over the place and running around you like crazy people.
Trying to scare you.
Scaring you, yes. And so that's what I have found. There's no in-between ground. It's like either really quiet or it's crazy. But the other areas, when you're in your camp room, when you're in your human room, that seems to be different. They seem to do a lot of screaming, and they seem to come down to the edge of camp a lot and do wood knocks and things like that, kind of letting you know that they're there, but playing with you a little bit,
Yeah. And our good friend Mike Beers, he's talked to me about going out in the field, and he said if you're interesting, they'll want to come check you out.
Yes.
So if you want to have a camp encounter, it's like you got to make yourself interesting. Don't just be boring.
Well, that's why the music thing. See, and I've always taken my guitar with me camping. There's always a guitar in my camp, and playing. I don't know how many times I've been sitting there for hours playing my guitar, and I swore there was 10 Sasquatches on the outskirts listening to me. Who knows for sure, but I think they do like music personally. I really do believe that end of it.
If they're in any relation to us and other primates, music is just, it does things to us. It affects everybody. Music has an effect on everybody.
Yeah, it's a universal language, so
totally. So it's
no matter what you speak or what you do, you feel it.
Yeah, exactly. And so it bears to say, from a logical standpoint, if it works on us, it can work on them. And I think that they're probably very interested in it, and that's really cool. Because I was going to ask you, do you feel like when you play music, and I don't mean just like out of the radio, like actual live music, like you said, taking your guitar. I think maybe not from a sound wave perspective, but there's just a difference. It just affects people differently. I think you know what I mean. And so having
we were actually up at that
music,
lake. We were at that lake, and this was over 10 years ago, maybe 15 years now. And I was actually playing my guitar with another guy. We were both playing, and there was probably 20 people in camp at the time. And a guy by the name Bart from Northern California, he's a Bigfooter. He had a sighting through a thermal as I was playing the guitar about 20 feet away. He stepped back to relieve himself, and he took the thermal with him. And this thing was on down low to the ground. He said it looked like it was the upper part of its body was extended forward, but it wasn't touching the ground.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, and it freaked him out. But so no, we've definitely had sightings while we've been in camp at this one area playing the guitar. So I encourage anyone to do it. I think just a happy camp, people, the laughing, compared to maybe if you're over there shooting your gun for 4 hours, you might not get a visit compared to, happier camp. And that's just being logical. You know, that's just,
Yeah.
I think Sasquatch are definitely curious. You know, did
Right.
curiosity kill the cat? Well, it might have killed the cat. Can it kill a Sasquatch? I don't know. But they
That's remained
definitely
to be
seem
seen. Yeah.
curious. They are. They seem curious, you know, and they do mimic, like you were talking about the mimic thing. They do mimic animals, and they can mimic people. I've actually had, from another guy telling me this, that I've had my name spoken at the same camp, by the way, the same
What?
lake. Yeah, at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was getting zapped at the same time, and he felt this thing out right outside his tent, and it came up and it hovered right over his tent, and it went Paul, Paul, Paul
Oh, wow.
3 times, and then it walked over to another tent where Rick's tent was, and put his hand in his tent and pushed the hand all the way up to where Rick could see the Bigfoot's hand.
Oh my God. So
Yeah,
you got them saying your name out there. They
I
know
know,
you.
right?
They know
Yeah,
you.
and they have to know me, and I've been good. This is an area I've been going to for like 20 years, you know. So
That's
um,
awesome.
that just shows you how close, you know, that they have to be closer to related us. That there's some cognitive thinking there, you know. That
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
super compelling, and I think it's, I mean, when you're saying, they're saying your name and stuff, it really sounds like to me that because of the way you do things and your energy when you go out there, and playing music and stuff, that you've built a rapport with
I
this
believe
group,
that.
or
Yeah,
yeah, that is
yeah.
so awesome.
Well, that was the one thing, and the latest thing that happened when I was there, and I was there with John Andrews, my friend, who's been researching over 50 years, and then this other guy who is a guitar player, by the way, really good guitar player.
Okay.
And his tent was within, just not very far from mine, and I got woke up at like 4 in the morning, and I thought I was in a dream, but there was something right out my side my tent, and to me it sounded like a big something big
Yeah.
crying. It was going
Oh,
like, it was going "Whoa, ah, ah," like this, and I'm like, what? And I started saying, what, because I was waking up from it. I thought it was a dream,
yeah.
and then I yelled over at my friend, "Hey, you hear this?" He's like, "Yes, I thought I was in a dream too, but I hear it." And it was like literally right outside my tent, and I don't know what it was, but it was like scary. It was like, but it sounded
Dude,
like something
well,
huge
yeah.
crying, and it was like I didn't want to go out there. I mean, I was like kind of scared.
Well, dude, I don't blame you.
So, you know,
Yeah.
again, I don't know what it was. Didn't sound like anything I know. I mean, I know when an elk bellows and all that. I know it wasn't an elk or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Wow.
I believe that as long as I've been going to this area, and like you said, from what I've been doing there when I go there, I believe that they probably know me. I mean, it's just that simple.
Yep.
And I think they
Yep.
get to know a lot of people, you know,
Yeah.
that
And it just speaks to, it puts a human element to them,
mhm.
which I think a lot of people miss. And well, maybe they just love hearing you play music, and they're like, they were looking for you. Hey, we need a jam session. Where are you
Right.
at, Paul? Where are you at? That's incredible. I've never heard of, building a rapport with Sasquatch. I think that is so cool. I can kind of relate, in ghosts and in that side of things of, a building here in Port Gamble where other teams investigate in this location, and they get audio pieces where the long-term residents, as we call them, are saying like, "Where's Pete? Where's Pete?"
Oh, wow.
And I hear my name a lot in these places, and so I mean that just speaks to how your approach and how you're going about, your business out there, and I think they probably just love hearing the music too. So that's really cool. That is
Yeah.
awesome. That kind of blows my mind. Uh, well, I kind of want to go back to the structures thing a little bit. I had a question there. Um, for people who do like to go out and go hike and stuff, is what's kind of like you know the basic thing you look for, or if you spot something, what's that thing that's telling you this is possibly a structure? What's kind of the easiest thing that you spot generally?
Well, the first thing that I got into was these small teepee structures that they seem to make.
Okay.
They're about 1 foot to 3 foot tall, and there's literally usually one branch that has a fork in it, or maybe not, but there's 3 main branches that are kind of put together into a simple teepee mode, and then there's other branches that might be added, but there's always one branch horizontally near the top intersection where they come together that kind of ties it together.
Okay.
And when I first started researching this, it was in Granite Falls, Washington, and these people had multiple sightings at their house, and they called me and my friend. I was working with the BFRO at the time. I'm not with them now.
Mm-hmm.
And we went over there and asked if we could hike their property, and we started finding we found like almost 20 of these things on their 20-acre property.
Wow.
And they were just so, I mean, you could grab the top of it and pull it and it wouldn't pull apart,
Yeah.
And so we set up a study there over the next couple of years and literally watched as these things would appear and disappear. I mean, and that's what I tell people is you need to go into the same area and be seeing something that's appearing or disappearing. But so they'll do that. They'll make these small teepee type structures. They're small. They also seem to make large teepee structures that mean, I think, something different. But another thing that they'll do is they'll just stick sticks in the ground in a row, what I call fencing.
Okay.
And they'll just take a stick and stick it in the ground. They'll also take a branch, oftentimes from somewhere else, and bring it into a new area. And they'll make what's called an arch, just a basic arch. They'll stick both ends of the branch in the ground, broken off, and make an arch. Okay.
Right.
Like my paper that I talk about, this one area up where I just had my sighting. This thing must have been watching me because I got a small one-man tent and it's got a perfect arch that comes up so high. Well, after I'd been there, there's something else to this whole story too. There was a disappearance, but after I'd been there, 2 weeks earlier, I came back and this thing replicated. There was an alder branch. Then the alder doesn't even grow up there. And it was exactly where my one-man tent was. No one in the whole world. I had broke the branches off to put this one-man tent there. And when I came back, there was a branch stuck in the ground almost to the same length from head to toe as I am and height. And then off of it was a small branch that went up and wrapped around these 2 other trees. One was a cedar and one was a fir, and they were weaved together and tied. And John Bindernagel came and saw this. In fact, some of the Russian people talk about Bigfoot's making these knots. And I mean, this is a perfect knot. You'll see it in my paper, but it made this knot. And then it made this small teepee structure right where my head was. And then it stuck these other ones in the ground. I mean, this was all around my one-man tent. All this stuff appeared within 2 weeks.
What the heck?
Well, what happened was where I had my sighting last year, there's a lady that went missing. Okay. And she's actually a world-renowned mushroom picker. She was a world-renowned mushroom lady investigator from the University of Washington. And to this day, she's never been found. And where I saw my Bigfoot was like 30 feet from where she was last seen.
Yeah.
Yep. No, it's there's, and I'm not saying that a Bigfoot took her, but there's a lot of weird things that have happened.
Yeah.
With some of these disappearances, and there's even a history up this particular area in the 1800s. There was an Indian that had been kidnapped and then came back after it had been kept in a cave for 6 months or 8 months or something like that.
God. Wow.
So, yeah, there's a lot to this whole Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
It can be a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. There's more to it than just going out and, because if you look at it, people, it's all over the country, and you look back east, and it's like, well, how could possibly be Bigfoot's be back here?
Yeah.
If you look at a map, there's just so many roads, but apparently they are. I mean, in Ohio, there's a lot of reports in Ohio and Florida and Pennsylvania, and it's like they're everywhere. Well, what's going on here? How can there be this whole
Population,
giant population that populates the whole earth, and yet we don't know where they're at or where they're going.
Yeah. God, that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's fun. Once you jump in, just be ready. That's all I gotta say.
Right. Be interesting and be safe.
Yeah, be safe, be interesting, but yeah, you got 20
Yeah.
years because you might be at it a while.
Well, any good thing worth doing takes forever. So
That's right.
and any good thing worth doing should leave you with more questions than
Well,
answers,
sure. I
right?
mean, and that's I talk about even that because look at Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey with the great apes. Look at the work that she did. If you ever get a chance, read Gorillas in the Mist. So that was
Yeah.
measured in years. When she first started coming around those great apes, they didn't want nothing to do with her. She couldn't even get close, and she got to the point where she could actually sit down right next to one and toss an apple to it, and really compelling work when you think about what she did. I mean,
Yeah.
as a human being, and to have the balls to go in there and do that. I mean, that's just crazy. And
Yeah.
Great story. If anyone's never read Gorillas in the Mist, it's
I've
a
seen
really
the
good
movie.
book.
I haven't
The
read the
movie's
book.
great too, and there's
Yeah.
a great book about it too. So
Yeah, well, I'd say you're doing pretty good if you have them coming into a camp saying your name. I think
well, it did happen. I mean,
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, and the guy that it's a retired colonel from the Air Force that it happened to, and I trust him, with my life, and
Yeah.
he wouldn't lie to me. I mean, he's just telling me what happened, I mean,
Yeah.
just relaying. So, but it has happened to other people too. The mimicking thing definitely is something they seem to
Yeah.
do. They'll mimic dogs, they've mimicked dogs, they mimic birds, they seem to mimic owls.
Yeah. Now, in a lot of accounts and
Vocal.
things I've heard over the years, what's your take on? A lot of people think that Sasquatch does not like dogs. Based on a lot of stories of encounters. There's one that happened here in Washington in my county where a guy's dog was thrown through the yard, and I think it killed the dog, but the guy had called 911.
Yes, well aware of that 911.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
quite
standing here looking at it.
Yeah.
Get somebody out here.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, no, that's quite the
I mean,
story.
what do you think? Do you think they don't like dogs? Have you had any
Domestic
experiences like that?
dogs, no. Coyotes, possibly yes, but then you're talking about two different things there. Domestic dogs compared to coyotes, it's a completely different thing. There seems to be
Right.
I think there's a relationship with them and coyotes. Often we'll get a scream, and then the coyotes will chime in immediately, and everyone thinks it's just coyotes. Well, it wasn't. It was the initial scream was like something different. I've actually got some recordings of that.
Yeah.
But the dog thing for sure. One of my very good friends that I played in the band with, Dean DeWeese, he actually played with Lawrence Welk on a couple shows. He was invited on the Lawrence
That's
Welk
awesome.
show. So Dean's like 83 now, and he grew up in Aberdeen, Washington, and I had a band with him and his two other brothers. His one brother played drums and the other one played keyboards. Ray passed away in 2011, and that's when we hung up the band. But from 2006 to 2011, we had a band called Cabin Fever, and just great band. But Dean still lives in the original cabin on Blewett Pass, where he had his encounter in 1978, and it was of a white one. And him and his cousin were playing cards inside, and they heard a commotion outside, and he opened the door, and he had 4 dogs at the time, and 2 of them got along and the other 2 got along, but they all 4 never got along together. They were kind of in group.
Mm-hmm.
So he opens the door, and it's January 23rd or something, 1978. Dogs go running outside, just go bolting outside. All of a sudden, not 30 seconds later, all 4 of them come bolting back inside the cabin and literally cowering over in the corner.
Oh, jeez.
And so Dean's cousin got up, walked outside, and goes, Dean, you need to, and this whole story's been redone on Monster Quest, by the way. There's
Okay.
a Monster Quest, and he's been written up in a couple books about it, but he's like, Dean, you need to get out here. There's something out here. And Dean got up, walked around the corner, and not 10 feet away, this thing was a white one, was right there. And what it had done, it had broke into, they have chicken pen right out on their back porch there, and it tore a 4x4 hole in the chicken pen, grabbed 5 of these Hampshire Reds, and had laid it in the snow in a perfect line, all these chickens with their beaks all pointed the same direction.
Weird.
Yeah. And I mean, but this thing was like right there. And so his cousin actually he'd always had a shotgun sitting there, and they had some bird shot in it in the corner. So his cousin grabbed the shotgun because they were both scared, didn't know what to do. Well, he let him have it from like 10 feet away, and the thing just turned around, looked at him, and gave him the dirtiest look, and just smirked at him and walked off, and just walked off. Well, they ran back in the cabin, and then they came back out. Well, this thing had doubled back, and it got 3 of those chickens that laid it, but it left 2 of them. Bigfoot's not greedy. That's one thing we've learned. Bigfoot always seems to leave enough for everybody. But anyway,
interesting.
Yeah, so it took 3 and left 2, and then they followed the tracks down to where it had jumped into the Shaston Creek, and there was an anthill, and it landed right in the middle of that anthill, and then made it across the creek. But that's a good friend of mine, and that he still lives in the same cabin that it happens in. If you ever want to meet him, he's a real interesting guy, and he lives in the old original gas station that went on this side of Blewett Pass. So the old Brenders,
crazy.
The Brenders were the first inhabitants to the pioneers that moved to the valley.
Yeah.
So he married into the Brender family, and they're like I said, they're a pioneer family from around here.
Yeah.
But he still lives there, and he's still kicking it on. And I mean, it was such the whole encounter, just the way it went down, and it was a white one, and they said it had like a blackish, kind of a darker thing that went around its shoulders and down its back into a V shape, kind of. It was darker on the back, but it was, other than that, it was real white. He actually made a little sculpture of what he saw that's at his house and stuff. But
dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that Bigfoot's not greedy. That's
right.
Yes. And you know, that speaks to, and I think that speaks to, you know, it makes me think, you know, when you're talking about kind of a relationship with the coyotes out there, you know, maybe they leave food for some animals, and that's like their running buddies, you know, that kind of help them get around and help hide them too with their sounds.
Yeah, no, it's quite possible.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to, let's play one of your songs.
Oh, okay.
One of your Sasquatch songs.
Thank you.
I love this song, and it sounds like, you know, that one, that one time where you hear the Sasquatch crying. Maybe he had the Bigfoot blues, you know, at 4 a.m. So if we can go ahead and play clip 1. And this is Paul Graves with the Bigfoot Blues.
Wrote this about 10 years ago.
Nice.
Maybe even longer, but yeah, it's been around for a while.
Camping gear packed. Well, I got up this morning hoping to find some big tracks. Then I drove up into the mountains only to end up getting lost. So I did a couple of knocks, hoping to hear something knock back. I made a couple of loud yells, hoping that something would yell back. But I didn't hear nothing, not even a mouse. would show up with his family crew. But the only thing that showed up was a chipmunk, a porcupine, and a tiny shrew. I got the Bigfoot blues. I don't know what I should do. I got the Bigfoot blues. I can't find nothing, not even a clue. But I gotta keep on searching, 'cause I know you won't find them in any city zoo. I got the Bigfoot blues. I don't know what I should do. I got the Bigfoot blues. I can't find nothing, not even a clue. But I gotta keep on searching, 'cause I know you won't find them in any city zoo.
Awesome. Love it.
Thank
So
you.
Paul, yeah, Paul, so where could people find this?
Probably the best place is YouTube.
Mhm.
I'm kind of I'm in the middle of kind of reorganizing some of my stuff and getting it out on there on some different platforms. But
Nice.
yeah, most of my songs are available on YouTube right now. And like I said, I do have a Bandcamp and some other things, SoundCloud, but I need to reorganize some. As older guys, we need help doing all this computer stuff. So
It takes so much time.
I'm the worst at self-promotion. So
Yeah,
I'll
well,
admit it.
that was great, and thanks for letting me play one of the songs
Oh, you
on the
bet.
show
Thank
here.
you for playing it.
Yeah, so go to YouTube, everyone, and type in Paul Graves
Yeah,
and the
I've got
Bigfoot
a channel.
Blues.
And
Yep. Yeah, and you'll
subscribe and all that good
look
stuff
for
if
his
you can.
channel. Yeah, listen to some of the other songs. It's a nice mix of music from the songs that you had sent to me, and so I definitely recommend go and check it out. That's going to be stuck in my head for probably the next couple of days. So no, that's great. Now, I wanted to also so the song, you're talking about having the Bigfoot blues, you're not catching anything. Well, let's hear a piece of audio that you sent that's pretty interesting and that you did capture. So, a time where you didn't have the Bigfoot blues, I guess.
Hmm.
um, and so, let's hear clip number 2 a couple of times. Then I'll have you talk about it, Paul.
Okay.
So, kind of set this up. Where were you?
So I was actually in the Olympics. I was actually at the Olympic Project headquarters in the Olympics. Place Derek has out there that Wally and Derek got, and there was a number of us there. We were all in a big field. And there's a big mountain that rises right up behind this piece of property, Mount Mueller.
Okay.
Big old mountain. And we'd been sitting around the fire and been doing some stuff or whatever, and I had my recorder going, and this thing went off. And it's basically the very first sound there, I'm kind of shuffling around. You're hearing a little bit of shuffle, but there's actually three tones to this call. It goes ah, ah, ah. So there's 3 distinct notes, and it
Yeah.
called, and I've heard that before, and it was real Sasquatch sounding. It didn't sound like anything else. Obviously it didn't sound like an elk or a cougar, anything like
Right.
that. So it was interesting, and it was like, wow, there's like three definite things. So when I took it, one of the things I do is I analyze wildlife sounds in a spectrograph, and because all animals have a voice print and a hertz range, as humans do. So you've got those two things. If you have your hertz range that most North American animals, once you've worked with them enough, what their hertz range is. They also have a unique voice print. Once you put those two together, you can usually figure out what it's not that you have on your recorder. So that's
Right.
kind of what I'm trying to do. Is before I'm saying it's a Sasquatch or anything, I'm eliminating everything else.
Right.
But this particular sound, it had these three notes. So when I put it in the spectrograph, what was interesting is some of our sounds that we think are Sasquatch run right between 650 hertz and 800 hertz.
Okay.
Humans hear from about 20 hertz to up to 20,000 hertz. So there's a wide variety there. But the Sasquatch calls, the suspected Sasquatch calls, I should say, that we're getting come in pretty tight, right around that 650 to 800. Well, this was right around 800, but what was interesting was it was 800 hertz, but the voice print itself was just one solid line, which is a lot of times that's indicative of what we think could be a Sasquatch, is this single line. And I thought it was odd because there was three notes and there should have been a different voice print, but it was, more like that. And then I even went a little bit further, me being the musician, and I started listening to those notes, and I'm like, well, what is that? What is that note? So I ran over and grabbed my guitar, and I went, dun, 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 and I realized it was a 1-4-5 progression.
Right.
Basically a blues progression.
I was just going to say that's a blues progression.
Yeah, it was awesome. A 1-4-5, and I was like, wait, what? And you can hear it, anybody can take the notes, and you can tell that it's a 1-4-5. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And again, it's awesome. Hard, with these sounds, but there's a lot of birds that they'll actually classify just from hearing the bird sound. So, there is a little bit of science to it. People are like, well, how do you know what it was if you didn't see it making the sound? Well, these spectrograph, you can eliminate. You can eliminate a lot of the other stuff, and then that's when it gets interesting if you've got something that's a little different there. So it's a fun thing to do. Me and I go back a long ways doing it, and me and Dave Ellis, got into doing it early on, and then David does some work with the Olympic Project now, and it's just something it's a fun aspect being a musician. I already have a recording studio here in my basement, so I can just, I just got some software that had a spectrograph, and Sonic Visualizers got one, and I think even Audacity does. And those are a couple that I use. If folks want to, it's a great thing for people to get into for fairly inexpensive, is get a recorder, whether you're hunting ghost or whatever. You can get a fairly cheap $100 Tascam or Sony or something, or a Zoom, and you can go out and get some of these sounds and then take them back and analyze them, and again, you can get software for pretty cheap or free also. So it's a fun thing to do, and I encourage anyone to do that, especially with the audio, because it seems like the audio doesn't get bothered like the cameras do. The cameras are tougher, people are having a harder time getting stuff with the cameras, but the audio stuff seems to be a lot easier to get.
Yeah. It's same with paranormal investigation for ghosts. It's the audio.
Yeah.
So, well, you took it one step farther on this because it was, kind of strange that the voice print was a single line, and you kind of broke them up and sent those along as well.
Yeah.
So if we could hear clip 3, and this is the first of where you kind of broke this sound up.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hear clip 3. So there's the first note. Yeah. And if it's a bird, what bird do you think it would possibly be?
Big one.
Okay, we're talking like pterodactyl size, maybe.
Yeah.
So, and then if we could hear clip 4, now this is the second where you've kind of separated the 3. If we could hear clip 4 real quick, please. Okay, yeah, let's hear it one more time. Then now is that the top range of it?
I think
That
that
one, you
was the
think?
last one.
Okay.
Might have been one higher. There was 3 total.
Okay. Well, let's hear clip 5. We'll hear that one, and then let's talk about what you did.
Yeah, no, that was the last one. So that the one before that was the middle.
Yep, that was the 4.
Oh, ho, ho.
Yeah.
That way.
So, with splitting it apart, gosh, it does sound big. I mean, that thing sounds big, and I didn't grow up out in the woods, but I love going out in the woods, and that just doesn't sound like. I mean, it doesn't sound like anything I've ever heard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I agree. It's, and when you hear it live, I mean, recorders pick up some stuff, but boy, when you hear some of this stuff live, it's so much louder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're just like, well, what could even make that sound,
Especially if it's, outside your tent.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I don't know how that would be so freaky. So do you have any idea, ballpark idea, how far away this thing was from where you were?
It sounded like it was fairly close, just back on the ridge, back behind us a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't even say it was nowhere near the top. I mean, it sounded like it was almost down in the flats, like where the ridge comes down, and there's pretty good sized piece of forest where it levels off before it hits the field. But it sounded definitely like it was behind me, coming off the ridge, but down lower.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just got that valley echo to it. That's
yeah, it was
awesome.
definitely up. I mean, higher than we were, but I don't think it was clear at the top of Mueller. I think it was down maybe 2/3. Yeah, 2/3 way down, like it was closer to camp, because it sounded fairly close, but it rises up pretty quick there behind camp. So
yeah. Wow, that's thanks for sending that. That's
yeah.
that's definitely
That's
weird. That's so weird to hear. Yeah, I'm intrigued with that. I'm very interested in sounds and how they work, and I've used the spectrograph too, going through audio data from paranormal investigation. It's sound is you can put a lot of things into a box with sound. Different things have their own box you can put it in, but then there's those other things that just kind of break the rules, for sound or what we think it should be. It's kind of like playing music. There's rules, but you can break the rules.
Oh yeah.
That's
right.
That's what they're there for, to be broken.
That's right.
Yeah. So, well, I wanted to you've experienced a lot of different things, and so I wanted to move on to another subject that you've had an experience with and done some research in, talking about strange lights appearing, and just tell us a little bit about what you've researched and kind of a little bit of what your experience is with these strange lights. And this is in an area that you're from.
Yeah, well, I've had multiple experiences with the light thing, even while we've been Sasquatching. There's up at that one particular lake, for instance, I've definitely seen blue lights like dancing in the trees when we thought there was a Sasquatch around after it screamed. We got recordings. There seemed to be Sasquatch around, and then these lights would appear in through the trees down lower, kind of dancing around. And this has happened to numerous people, not just me. I mean, it's happened to me one good time up there, but I've seen them other places too. But this is up at this other place. But a lot of people up at this one place have seen them. But so I always thought about them, kind of kept them in the back of my mind. But then when I bought some mountain property in 2006, 20 miles outside of Wenatchee, and we're up there, we're up higher than Stevens Pass and Blewett Pass. We're like at 4,160 feet or something like that. And there's a small little village called Waterville, and there's a history, and I didn't know about this until I started doing some research, but there's actually what's called the Waterville spook lights. People have heard of spook lights, obviously. And this was a real thing up in the Waterville area this has been going on since at least the 40s or 50s. And they called them the Waterville spook lights, and people would see this light that would be hovering above ranches, and then it would just like dart off, sideways or whatever. And as a matter of fact, this is a true story, but the kids back in the 50s used to go out looking for the spook light. They would get in their pickup truck with shotguns and go out and try to shoot the spook lights. No,
hey, doing what we can, right?
Yeah, right. So there was that history, and so my property is very close to this little town where the Waterville spook lights. It's literally just right below. I mean, I rise right up above it. And I've actually on one of my game cameras, I think I've gotten a spook light before on my game cameras. And I've also found in the middle of winter when it was 20 degrees or 0 degrees out. I mean, it's pure cold. I found where I hike all the time down the bottom of my canyon on my property, I found a freshly broken branch, twisted, and then right below it was a perfectly frozen circle.
What?
Yeah. And it's like, what's going on here? What is that?
Yeah. How did?
And I remember hearing something about Skinwalker Ranch where they found these circles that were frozen down there too. So I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, I just document stuff. That's what I do. I document stuff and put it together. And like my friend John Bindernagel says, sometimes you got to put it up on the shelf, but it's up there on the shelf and it's waiting there. And then it'll be there to take down at a different time later on, maybe if you come across something to, bring it back down off the shelf or whatever. But yeah, that kind of got me intrigued. And the other night I was actually up there looking for the northern lights, and I have a night vision too. And if you look through night vision, you can really see the northern lights, but you can also see like the sky, the amount of stars that you can see. I mean, it was crazy the other night. I saw stuff going every which way but loose up there. I mean, there was stuff crisscrossing, going sideways, all kind, because the human eye, you can't see what a night vision is. But if you ever get a chance, look up at the sky at night through a night vision. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
Just sit back for a couple hours and you'll see stuff that'll just blow your mind. I mean, you just will.
Yeah. So have you seen these spook lights with your night vision?
I've seen them just with the naked eye too.
Yeah.
They've come right over the cabin. I mean, I've seen them many, many times.
What do you think they are?
I don't know what they are, but they're weird. It's because it's a phenomenon that happens, and it's like, well, what is that? That thing is really close. What?
Yeah.
It's one of those things that just make you go, wow.
That's very intriguing. We're going to take another real short break here on WLTK-DB.com. And this is the Paranormal Pete Show. And I'm having such a blast with special guest Paul Graves. Hope you are too. And we'll see you just here in just a second. Quick station break. Right out here on
Looking to launch your new masterpiece? Then try something new with Moonbow Publishing and Publications. At Moonbow, we have a strong desire to serve authors in a powerful and meaningful way. After all, you've poured your heart and soul into your writing, and we fully understand and respect that. Remember this: You will own the copyright to your work. You will have the final say on your work before published. Even after all of that, we've saved the best for last. We won't take a percentage sold. Nope, not a penny. Excited about MoonbowPublications.com yet? We thought so. Take advantage of our company's services like book editing, formatting, and covers, publishing, and photography. Moonbow Publishing and Publications has everything you're looking for in a company. Remember, we will not keep any commissions. We are a boutique publishing company focusing on spiritual, health and wellness, and personal growth genres. So come and see what we can do for you at MoonbowPublications.com. That's MoonbowPublications.com. Moonbow Publications, a new kind of publishing company.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbe, with special guest Paul Graves. Before the break, we were just talking about the Waterville spook lights, and what an interesting phenomenon. And Paul, I wanted to ask you, is there a time of year that they seem to be more frequent, or, is it just kind of random?
Pretty much random, I'd say, yeah.
Okay, there's not like, winter is when you mostly see them, or summer, or...
Seems like in the fall and the winter there's a lot of activity, but it could just be because I'm up there more too. But yeah, it seems like it's year round.
Kind of random. And my wonderful, beautiful wife, Molly, asked a question. Do you feel any sort of magnetic-like energy when you see the spook lights?
No.
Okay.
Not that I can really say, but you never know. But no, not that I notice.
Yeah, I wonder if you're real close to one, if you'd feel something.
Well, other than my game camera's batteries going. Like right now, for instance, I usually get like every 2 weeks I'll get 1,000 or better pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the last 2 weeks to 3 weeks I got 6 pictures the last one. I mean, there's something down in my canyon right there. There's a predator down there because I'm not getting any deer. And this time of year, I should be getting thousands of deer.
Yeah. But
the batteries also, and it messes with the camera. It's almost like this last one, there was only 2 hits. And it was almost like it turned the camera off, but it didn't drain the batteries all the way. I don't know. My son just had a camera set up there too, and all his batteries went out immediately. So weird. Other than the battery thing, I would say no. But yes, definitely battery issues with the cameras.
Some sort of energy issue there. Oh, interesting. Well, I wonder if you'll ever have one so close if you could feel something. And let me ask you this: when you think of Sasquatch, let's say comes into your camp, or one is around, do you feel anything? Do you kind of, some predators use infrasound, do you feel anything?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You do. What do you feel when something like that is around?
Well, there's different feelings. There's been times when I felt real, euphoric, but other times terrified. Right. There's that particular lake that we're talking about. There was one time 3 times I'd been zapped there, but the one time was so bad that I vowed I'd never go back again. And I mean, I literally had a thermal camera. I heard something come up right behind me. It sounded like an elephant stomping, coming right up behind my tent and shooting a ray gun into my back. And I was in the tent, and I had the thermal right there on my chest and everything. But you couldn't have given me $1 million to get out of that tent. In fact, I couldn't even move. I could not budge. I was frozen with fear and terror. I was terrified. I mean, I can't even explain to you how scared. And I've backpacked by myself all over the Cascade Mountains for many years. I mean, I'm just not, and never carried a gun. I go deep into the woods and backpacking alone. This night I was terrified, and I don't know what it was. Next morning I woke up, the birds were chirping, everything was fine. I was fine. But there for a little bit, you know, and the Indians talk about that, about being hypnotized or whatever, you know, and they'll put you into a trance. And I think sometimes if I gotta, you know, I get up to, you know, if I gotta go pee in the middle of the night or whatever, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're getting up, but if they're in camp, you know, is this a mechanism that they're using to temporarily like put you down for a minute, just, you know,
Yeah.
or what, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's something to that whole thing too. That was a good question, because there's definitely something that they can do to make you feel definitely uneasy at times. And I've
Yeah.
talked to other people that, and I've had this happen to me just hiking, you know, like hiking in the woods, you know, it's a beautiful day out, you're just hiking along, you've been hiking for miles, all of a sudden you just come to a wall, and
Hmm.
you just stop, and then you just you get this feeling overcomes you, and you don't know why, but you literally like, okay, that's it, I'm not going any further, and you turn around and you go the other way,
Yeah.
you know, and that's happened to a lot of people. So I don't know what that's all
So
about,
there's
but
something to that,
there
and
could be something to it. Yeah.
yeah, it kind of makes me think, and this might be kind of far out there thinking, but they've been, one with nature for who knows how long. We have not, in a sense. We
Mm-hmm.
were, and as things, humanity developed and civilization, the majority of people are not connected to nature as much. You know what I mean? And so, what do you think about? Well, I think it's plausible, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, that they can do things to us with the use of whatever powers they've evolved with, using nature, because they're
Yeah.
so close to it and live off of it.
No,
And
I totally
uh,
agree with that. You know, there's even some speculation that they call it infrasound or whatever, you know, so that
right,
getting back to these sounds, like ultrasound is hearing above what a human can hear, and infrasound is below what we can hear. So like when dogs bark, when they hear a siren before we can hear the siren,
yeah,
that's an indication of ultrasound. So they're hearing above, but below, you know, uh, there's that lower wavelength. And if, like you said, if they've been around for millions of years, is there a way that they can utilize that on us? I totally believe that. In
yeah,
fact, tigers, it's been studied that in their roar, when they go roar, you know, or whatever to scare, they have
yeah.
an infrasonic something in the roar that you can't hear, that's inaudible to a human, that that
It can freeze you, right?
it stuns their prey. It'll temporarily actually stun their prey or whatever, or freeze them, like you said, you know. So, you know, if a tiger can do that, then definitely something like a Sasquatch could utilize that, and it would be a great tool too for him to use, you know, because
Yep.
yeah. So
Especially if they're trying to, remain hidden, but still investigate
exactly.
us and
Yeah.
check us out. And yeah, interesting thoughts there. That's really cool. Well, we're starting to get low on time here, and I feel like we could talk forever.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I
uh,
hear you.
but I wanted to ask about your house, because you talked about your house and having activity and living in a haunted house. And so tell us a little bit about your house and what you experienced there.
I know, on top of everything else, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
because 'cause you're a
yeah,
musician. It's because 'cause you're a
well, I
musician. You're
guess. So I bought this house in 1994. It was built in 1938.
Mhm,
And I bought it for really cheap because it was pretty run down. I completely stripped it all out and completely remodeled it, the whole 9 yards.
mhm.
But when I bought it, like literally within the first week, there was this old guy that lives across the street. His name's Woody, and he was like 85 at the time when I bought this in 1994.
Mhm.
And he came over and immediately started telling me about the guy that used to live here. And the guy that used to live here was like a convicted killer. He'd been convicted of killing people in like Seattle and Spokane and whatever, you know. And he's like, and there was no floor, it was just dirt floor down here in the basement. And he's like, yeah, there used to be a chain hanging here and a bunch of blood underneath. I'm like, what are you telling me? You know, what,
Yeah,
what are
thanks.
be quiet. I'm trying to buy this house and remodel it, you know. I
Yeah.
don't want to hear this stuff. He's just going off, and I didn't know what to think, you know.
Mhm.
Well, sure enough, you know, I remodeled the house and we start hearing stuff. I mean, and there's no doubt 100% it's a haunted house. It's I've seen stuff fly right off the counter. I've seen silverware right in front of me, like twist, and just all kinds of crazy stuff. Footsteps, lots of paintings. So my dad's a well-known Northwest artist. Actually, my dad, he studied with he was abstract expressionism when that first came in the late 50s with some of the Alden Mason, Mark Tobey, Gandy Brody out of New York City, and he was a student of these people. And so dad actually went on, he taught fine arts at Wenatchee Valley College for 32 years, and really good artist. He's got permanent works in the Seattle Art Museum, the Portland Art Museum, all over the world, so and getting back to what you were talking about with the I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You've talked to me about this a little bit. You had paintings coming off the walls.
Yeah. So I've learned how to hang paintings over the years. And in fact, one night I had actually been out Bigfooting until about 3 a.m. When I came back, I just got home, and the next morning, like at 5 a.m, I heard this crash, and it was this painting. It was an Indian painting. My wife collects Indian stuff too, and it was actually the Blackfeet Indian. That's what it said, but it had crashed, come off of a nail with a wire, on the 8 penny, 16 penny into a stud, and this thing come completely off the wall and crashed down the floor. And that's one of many times where that's happened with paintings. Or a drawing or something like that, or something hanging on the wall.
Yeah.
But the whole ghost thing too is, we've never been scared. Me and my wife Becky, I've never been scared or looked at it like it was an evil thing or anything like that. I just know we've encountered things here in the house. So definitely over the years that kind of gives an indication it is haunted, or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm glad you take it that way, and have that kind of outlook on it. And, I think most people would tend to get freaked out, because it's always unexpected, right? When something happens, you're not, it's always unexpected. And we got a question from Linda Myers here. Can you put that back up? Any idea at all who the ghosts are? Have you, just in looking in the history of the house, I mean, do you have any idea who might be still hanging around?
I didn't do a bunch of research. I know I've got the last name of the guy that used to live here that possibly could have been involved, because when I remodeled the house, I stripped everything down. When I was stripping down the bathroom, in the bathroom wall, there was a hatchet, hidden in the wall. And so it's like, well, who puts hatchet in the wall?
Oops, just left it there.
But Woody, the old guy that lived across the road, he was adamant. He was telling me that this guy that lived here in the house was a convicted killer. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a serial killer or whatever. I know back in the 40s and 50s in America, if you had a lot of money, I think you could kill and get away with it. It's probably still true to this day. But
right.
It's just, I guess, the way things work. But yeah, I have no idea. I never did any research on who, people, what exactly happened in this house. That's the only bit of information I know. And of course, Woody's passed away. He passed away maybe 5 years after I bought that. He was already, like I said, he was at least 85. So he was, and he sold me his Dodge pickup truck that he bought brand new in 1969 and only had 14,000 original miles on it.
Oh, nice.
In 94. And I still have it. In fact, I'm getting ready to sell it if anyone wants a 69 Dodge D100 with a 318 in it.
Look up Paul Graves if you need a truck. Well, and that's, what I like, what you've said is, you guys aren't freaked out, and, you just kind of live with it. I mean, would you say you just kind of live with it? It just, things just happen, and you just know it's going to happen. And
you never know when something's going to happen, and you just kind of take it with a grain of salt. We'll hear something, and me and Becky will joke, oh, that's a ghost,
Yeah.
And sometimes I've got cats, and we've had dogs too, and they passed away, but all of our animals have had literally been instances where they're like just freaked out and like barking and like looking at the wall or looking at something and just freaking out, and just going off. And it's like, what are you looking at? What's going on?
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, I actually wrote a song called Cow Ghost on my second album, the one with my first Bigfoot song, Mountain Monkey. There's a song also on there called Cow Ghost. So
nice.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's cool to know that, you guys aren't freaked out and just cool with it. Here sometimes people, they'll finally reach out to somebody, to try and get help with what's going on in their house, and they're just freaked out and, not sleeping and stuff like that. So at least like you've got this cool, like, cohabitation there. It does its thing. You guys live in your house, and live your life. So that's a bonus. I think a lot of people get freaked out. So,
Yeah,
I think it's cool. Have you ever set up an audio recorder in there?
I haven't. I've never done anything, and I've thought about it at times. I've never done any type of ghost research or anything. Maybe I should try that sometimes. Not like I don't have a recorder, because I know sometimes
you got a studio.
Yeah, and sometimes don't people take like a notepad even with a piece of paper and see if they've gotten writings before? And
yeah. I mean, the notebook is one of the best tools to have on an investigation. You just got to document stuff,
right?
Same as you're, documenting everything you can outdoors in the work that you do, indoors with ghost spirits or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I mean, noting things down is crucial, because
well, I've heard of people like leaving a notepad out and then the ghost writing on the notepad, like leaving their name on there or something.
That's totally possible.
Yeah,
it's if that whatever's in there can do that, why? Yeah, try it out.
Yeah, might try some couple different things, but
yeah.
No, I've never really done any ghost stuff. But yeah, it's maybe that you might have something there, Pete. You might got me going here.
Yeah, well, just leave it out. Just leave a recorder like on your kitchen table when you go out to work for the day.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just leave it there, and or if you're sitting around and you're you start to get a recorder going, just say, hey, just talk to your house like there's people in it,
sure,
and just say, hey, who's here, and see if you get a response. Hey, I noticed that you're moving things around. Are you trying to tell me something, or do you need things moved around? And you may get a response. You never know.
Okay.
And you got all the audio software to go through it. So I just wondered if you'd ever, taken a night and left your recorder going, and then,
I'm definitely going to try that now.
Yeah. Or, say, hey, good night. You might get a response. I think everyone, a lot of times, you get kind of stuck in you're asking these questions, doing an audio session for a paranormal investigation. And you're like, you get into this habit of asking all these questions, but for someone like you who hasn't done it before, just, ask questions you'd ask a stranger, when you're just meeting a stranger. Hey, what do you like? Hey, do you like music? Things like that. You never know. Something might come through.
It's a great idea.
And if you ever get anything, I hope you'll send it to me.
Oh, for sure. Are you kidding?
That would be cool.
That'd be cool. Absolutely send it to you.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love that. Well, we're coming up on the end here, and Paul, this has been such a fun conversation. You've had some amazing experiences, and I hope you continue to have them. And hope you can continue to document and collect evidence. It's not proof, but it's evidence. And the more evidence there is, the more compelling it is. And I think with what you do in your experience, you have the chance to open people's minds. You've opened mine even a little bit more tonight. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to have you on again. This was so much fun.
Oh, this is fun. Yeah, this is really great.
Yeah, and so if you want to hear Paul's Bigfoot songs in his compilation album, go to YouTube, type in Paul Graves, and then he's got a channel there. Make sure you subscribe. and check out his music. And hopefully your band will, hopefully in the near future, sometime in the future, get out and start playing some gigs again. You know,
Yes, we will for sure.
play in front of real people.
Yes.
What's that like?
Oh,
Yeah. So, and hopefully maybe we'll jam someday. We'll see. But I just thank you for coming on the show. And I just want to remind, oh, hey, Mike. Yeah, you're welcome, man. Thanks for all the help on my show. Katie, thanks for listening. She says fascinating show. I certainly think it was fascinating. Just a reminder of what's coming up next week. Next Tuesday, I've got Ken Gearhard coming on the show, and next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific. And then the week after that, I have my 1-year anniversary of this show, and bringing on some of my favorite paranormal investigators, the League of Extrasensory Gentlemen. We're going to be doing a roundtable, taking questions, having a good time. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of laughs, always is with these guys. So I hope you can catch that. On the 23rd, I've got Mark Marcel, and we'll be talking about Ape Canyon, and as well as some other really interesting stories from around Puget Sound, and even one that ties in with Port Gamble, which I'm super excited to hear about. Little Port Gamble out here. And then on the 30th, I've got ufologist Jim Clarkson coming on the show. So great lineup of shows this month, and I hope you'll join me for each one. And again, Paul, thanks so much for coming on, man. This was a blast, and I hope to have you on in the future. And I always leave the show with a toast, and think about this with music and the state that music puts us in. The past is history, the future is a mystery, but today's a gift because it's the present. And don't you
I
think
like that.
music puts you in the present, puts you in the
Yes.
now, in that moment? That's what opens us up, I think, being able to live in the moment. And so I wish everyone out there to take a little bit of time each day to be present, be where you are, be who you're with, hug everyone you're with, hug everyone else virtually for a while longer. And Paul, we'll see you soon, and you take care of yourself, man. And I wish everyone else out there good health and a lot of fun coming up. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next week on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, on WLTK-DB.com. Thanks all.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.